right, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. Woo! Get pumped up. My name is Kenny Bedwell. I'm the CEO of STR Insights, a data and consulting company. We help you find profitable short-term rentals. I don't know if I mentioned this, and you guys probably gathered. I'm also an STR investor myself. I have several short-term rentals. I live in Buffalo, New York, and my properties are throughout New York. So let's get started. Let's talk about data metrics. This is one of my favorite topics. I'm a nerd, all right? So data metrics that help you beat your competition. All right. So I assume, make an assumption here, most of you here have a property, right? A short-term rental already, okay? And you know what, the trigger word I hear a lot for, hear people say it all the time, is the word saturation. Ooh, saturation. Boo, saturation, right? And what I find is that a lot of hosts, they tend to, when they're not making money or there's a change in the performance of their property year over year, they tend to blame it on saturation. All these new short-term rentals in the market. It's really easy to kind of put the blame on other people entering in. Oh, I was making more money before, now I'm not. Therefore, it's because all these other properties are in the space and, I need to get out. We're going to talk a little bit about that. How can you figure out if your market is saturated? That's really important, isn't it? We're going to talk about how markets aren't saturated. It's by bedroom count because group size is different. So when you go on Airbnb, your family size versus someone else's family size is going to be different. They might be looking for a 4-bedroom and you're looking for a 2-bedroom, or you and your significant other are going away and you're looking for that 1-bedroom property. The supply is different and the demand is different. Therefore, saturation is never on a market level. It's on a bedroom count level. And what ends up happening is in different markets, the saturation for different bedroom counts is different. It's not all the same. Okay, I'm going to talk about this from the main stage a little bit more tomorrow about finding the sweet spot for how do you actually figure out what's the best ROI for bedroom counts when you're looking to find deals. But for this one, we're going to go, you already have a property. How do you know if your market's saturated and what can you do about it? Okay, beyond saturation, there are other things that you need to look at. And we're going to talk about what those other metrics are to know if you're successful. Who's ready? Was that a question or you're like, yeah, all right. Kind of like it slowly went up. I was like, all right, questions already, good. Okay, we're ready. Okay. This is probably the I don't know what I would call the simplest, the easiest one that you guys should all be tracking. Can you guys see this from over there? No? Okay, kind of. I'll just kind of read it off. So it's revenue and occupancy. Okay? Now, what about revenue and occupancy is important to track that helps you beat your competition? Number one, you need to be tracking revenue and occupancy on a monthly level. Why do we think that's important? Why not on a yearly level? Let me give an example. Somebody asked me, Kenny, what's your yearly occupancy rate for your lake house in New York? It is 39%. 39%. Is that a good investment? It actually is, but it could be. I hear some it could be's. The problem with thinking about a yearly occupancy or a yearly revenue, just looking at those, is that the true occupancy, my occupancy in June, July, August, and parts of September, or I'll just say those 3 months, is 98%. I make enough money in the months of May and June to cover all of my expenses for that property. Okay? July, August, September, November, that's all profit. That property is extremely profitable. It had a 56% cash-on-cash return. Okay, it was $350,000. It's a 7-bedroom house in New York on the Finger Lakes. Yeah, I know, cheap, right? Property taxes, though, they'll get you. So a little inflated there. But anyway, the cash flow is doing well. But my occupancy rate is 39%. Last year, I didn't have a single booking between the months of January and April. Okay, 0. I wasn't sweating because I knew, because I was tracking revenue and occupancy on a monthly basis. And when I evaluate properties, when I look for deals, future deals, I'm going to look at this stuff. I'm going to look at the historic trends. I'm going to see, okay, what is my seasonality going to be like? Because when I'm banking, do you think I just like blow all my money during the summer months? No, I have to save a little for the winter months, for the lean months. So I do that. So we like to see the occupancy on a monthly and yearly basis. You can do this in STR Insights, by the way. So this is one metric to help you understand. Now, let me focus on revenue a little bit because this is very, very important. Revenue, when you track revenue, I hear a lot of people come up, like I spoke to some lady earlier, hopefully she's here because I told her to stay for this one. A lot of people are like, Kenny, my property's not performing well. What's wrong with it? Check it out. Check out my listing. Is it my pictures? My pricing's already low. Everybody slash their prices. I hear that all the time. My listing description, I've optimized it. I'm thinking about putting in this like $5,000 amenity. Like, what should I do? How do I know what to do? And I go, well, first off, do you know how much you should be making? And 9 times out of 10, they're like, no, not really. They just know what they've made in the past. They don't know what they're supposed to be making, and they don't know what the market is currently making. So if you're already making in the 90th percentile for the market, should you really be making that much more? Probably not. But you don't know that if you're not tracking that metric and seeing what your competition is doing and also the market is doing by bedroom count. Does that make sense? So before you like freak out about I'm not making any money, you really should be asking yourself, should you be making any money? We all just assume that we can buy an Airbnb and it's going to make money, but really, should it be making money? I know that sounds like a silly question to ask, but it really isn't at the same time. Like, you need to do that back research. The fact of the matter is, in 2021, 2020, 2021, even 2022, you could put an Airbnb anywhere you wanted. Downtown Baltimore. Okay, extreme example. Yeah, folks, that was so good. You could put it anywhere you wanted, and it would make money. It would cash flow. But is that the case today? No. And sometimes it is because of saturation or other things. But the reality is you can't do that today. So if you can't do that today, you need to know what a property should do, even if you've had it for a while and it was profitable. Okay, let's move on. Booking lead time or booking window. So I need to get paid for this. Where's Price Labs? I use Price Labs for this, okay? It's not in STR Insights. If they don't pay me, maybe I'll put it in STR Insights and then we'll change. So I use Price Labs for this, and it's called booking lead time. This is one of the most important metrics you need to know in order to beat your competition. Why is that? So what is booking lead time? Booking lead time is it's a present day metric, okay? We don't use the past, and you can't get it for the future. It's the present day metric, meaning how far in advance are people booking today, okay? I'm in Buffalo, New York, and I literally have listings that they have 0 bookings after the 14th of February. I have a couple like that. Do you see me sweating? No. Why? Because I know what the booking lead time is in Buffalo. It's 10 days, meaning that right now, the average guest is booking only 10 days out into the future. Meaning that if I actually get bookings way out in the future, I'm priced too low because they're not looking that far in the future. They're only looking today. Now, every single market, the booking lead time is different. If I'm in a beach market and I have 0 bookings right now for the summertime, I might start to sweat a little bit, okay? Because that started in December when people were booking for December. My lake property, it's starting to get bookings for the summer now, and I'm adjusting my prices accordingly now, okay? I wasn't worried about it in December. I wasn't worried about it last year because that's not when people look. I'm tracking the booking lead time. And the fact of the matter is the booking lead time changes for every month of the year and in the present. It's a present day metric. And just because the booking lead time for February, what's today, the 5th? The 5th is 10 days in Buffalo, New York. Next year, February 10th, it could be different. It could be 9 days. It could be 15 days. It changes. So we have seen in the data across the entire country, and I know you guys are seeing this too, guests are not booking out as far as what they used to, okay? So when you decide to make changes in order to beat your competition, you need to be relying on this. Because once again, I'm going to ask the silly question of, should you actually be changing your pricing and everything if your booking lead time is low? It just depends on the booking lead time. So you can go into Price Labs. They have a market dashboard. It's $10 for every market, and it provides you this metric. It'll tell you the booking lead time based on the market and then the bedroom count. Use the bedroom count, okay? And this will dictate whether you should raise, lower your prices, add things, panic about making changes to your listing. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, addition to this, in Price Labs, I love this table. So this table, Price Labs calls it booking window. Okay, I don't like that. I call it booking lead time. That's a lot better term. So whatever. But so what I like about this is it's going to break it out for me based off of months in the year. So it's telling me like this is my lake market. This is the booking window for these specific months. So in July, it's 66, meaning that 60 days, on average, guests were booking, what's that, like 2 months, 2.5 months for July dates. And I'm gonna take action on that. But in the winter months, people aren't booking as far out, okay? So this is kind of like, I call this the panic metric. Meaning like, if I'm in, I don't know, this is February, I guess, February of this year, or no, last year, sorry, February of last year. If this is February of last year and I see 25 days, if I don't have bookings in the next week or two, I should probably panic a little bit and sweat, right? Because I should, because people have already booked, majority of people have already booked 25 days or more in advance. Whereas, you know, if I go into other months and I have like, I have a ton of bookings, but I'm, you know, in July and, you know, I'm 5 months out, this says it's only 66 days. So I still have 2 months before July before I actually need those bookings. So don't be the first to the bottom. I see that a ton with short-term rentals. They all look the same and it's a race to the bottom on pricing. It's the same thing with it's a business principle. It's a zero-sum game. We don't want to make it a zero-sum game. And be smart about your booking lead time. This is how you track demand. If you can make action based on demand, you will beat your competition. Moving on, length of stay. So length of stay is how long guests are staying on average. I've seen a lot of markets, especially beach markets, where the length of stay is 7 days, okay? And that's fine. If people stay, you know, Saturday to Saturday, that's like pretty much a tradition down there, all right? But I've started to see some properties change that up. They might change their minimum stay to 4 days or 3 days and raise prices because people don't want to stay Saturday to Saturday and be like everybody else. And guess what? They're making more money. They're changing the norm. They're testing things because they're following the demand in what guests are actually wanting to do. They're raising prices and lowering their minimum night stays. Okay. Now, I know some of you are like, well, it's like I can do the 7 to 7 and I'll get booked and that's like peace of mind for me and that's what I want to do in those markets and that's fine. But it doesn't have to be the 7 to 7. It could be the 3 nights or the 4 nights. Okay. When I get, and it's seasonality too. So in Buffalo during the summertime, there's so much demand. People coming for Niagara Falls. There's, you know, we've got football, we've got hockey, we've got a lot of stuff. They're not good, but you know, whatever. Get used to it after a while. But we've got Niagara Falls, and over 10 million people go to Niagara Falls every year. Okay, and the town of Niagara is just dumpy on the American side. So people stay in Buffalo. So my summertime, I don't do anything. And I raise my minimum night stay because I know people are gonna book no matter what. And I raise my prices. But during the winter time, when I have to get aggressive and I have to beat my competition and there's not as many people staying and we get in the news again for another snow apocalypse, like I've got to lower my minimum night stay. I don't like to do one nights because that incentivizes parties, but that's me personally. But I'll do 2 nights. I'll go down to 2 nights during the winter in the harsh months like now. And I'll get my bookings or my weekends booked and some days during the week. And so I'm being aggressive, but it changes season to season. And it's based off of demand again. Does that make sense? So use the length of stay, and this also changes. You can see this is also in Price Labs as well. This changes every single month of the year. So learn what your length of stay is, average length of stay is for your guests. I use Hospitable, and they give me a report, and I can average in a spreadsheet what my average length of stay is for specific months my guests stayed. And I can track that and use that as a guide to know when I should change my minimum night stays to attract more guests. Okay, that's a quick hack to beat your competition. Let's keep it moving. RevPAR, okay. Everybody write this down. So first off, what does RevPAR mean? Revenue, it means revenue per active rental. Some people call it RevPAL, or I can't remember, so active listing. I can't remember the other one, but it's different terms, but it's all the same thing. Revenue per active rental year over year, okay? This is your saturation metric. Dun, dun, dun. All right, here's how you can tell if your market's saturated. Oop, I just messed up. Your property size by bedroom count is saturated. Remember, markets aren't saturated, bedroom counts are saturated. It's by your RevPAR. So RevPAR, we take the total active listing count and we divide it by the revenue, the total revenue for a given bedroom count during a specific month out of the year. So let me explain this. So if I wanted to compare to see if today, and here's the thing, saturation does this, right? It goes up and it goes down. In a lot of markets where there's a lot of inventory, it just kind of climbs up over time. But when people get rid of listings, it can theoretically go down, right? And we've been seeing that in the marketplace. There's some places where it's actually dipped in the number of total listings, or because of government officials, it's been dipped, like less rentals total. So really what we need to do is understand what was the total listing count during a specific time period last year, the total revenue that they made, and then compare that to what the total listing count is today and the total revenue today. A really big misconception I hear is, well, there's like Airbnb will post this, because they have earnings and they have to report to shareholders, and they'll go, bookings were way up and we've made more money. But that doesn't mean we as hosts made more money. That means Airbnb made more money. Just because there's more people booking and demand is ever increasing doesn't mean the supply is increasing at the same rate. It can surpass it, and at those moments where it surpasses it is saturation, okay? So here's how you calculate it. So what you do, and there's a perfect example, and it's already calculated here. So basically what it did is take the total number of active listings divided by the total revenue for the number of bedroom counts in January 2023, and then we get a number, okay? This is 35, and this is in Price Labs, okay? This is January 2024, so we take the total number of active listings divided by the total revenue and divide it again, and we get another number, and this is 32. Now this is a random market, and these numbers are estimated, but 35. If this number is less than this number, this market is saturated, or that bedroom count is saturated. If this number, meaning your present day, is greater than this metric, then the market is not saturated, and there's actually more demand than supply. You want it to be, so if today it's less, so the total active listings divided by the total revenue is less than what it was last year. In the same month last year, that's important. Not December, it's the same month, same period of time. Then the market, or not the market, bad Kenny, then the bedroom count is saturated, okay? And this can change as listings come in. So you might see some markets like beach markets where people shut down their listings in the wintertime, okay? And they take them off Airbnb and the total active listing count goes down, but in the summertime it ramps back up, but also the revenue goes back up. So this is a metric that can change over time, but you will see in some of the big markets, it'll still be negative, meaning that these numbers are less than these numbers, and it will still stay negative over time, which means that bedroom count is saturated. I will take questions on this because I know this is important for you guys. Yes?
So this one's obviously like a lot. If your expected the shoulder season is on the year-over-year comparison of RevPAR, is that a leading indicator that the market is heading towards or the bedroom count is heading towards saturation?
Yes. So he asked if you see obviously this is a heavy summer market, right? Like boom. If you see these shoulder seasons starting to dip on this side, that's a leading indicator that there's increasing saturation in this market. Okay? Not every market is saturated. A lot of big popular markets are saturated though. So keep that in mind and don't panic. Now, what you'll find though, and the big thing is people will go, oh, well, the market's saturated. Like we just kind of label a market as saturated. But the reality is like, if it's like 2%, that's barely saturated, right? There isn't cause to panic. So you guys are here, meaning that you want to be in the upper echelon of revenue performance. And there's going to be properties that will fall off that are just throw it on the market and hope it gets bookings, and they have terrible reviews. Those are the people who are going to suffer. Those are the people who are going to drop out. So when a market is saturated, in my opinion, if it's greater than 10%, you've got some problems. That's my rule of thumb. You can write that down. Okay? If it's less than that, I really wouldn't panic.
10%, greater than 10%, you're comparing the year-over-year numbers.
The average, yes. Yep, exactly. Sarah.
When evaluating a bedroom count for a new market, where do you put this at? Is that in
This is in Price Labs.
just pay $10 for that market?
Yeah, or you can do it by hand. Like you can just go, okay, what was the total active listing count in January of this particular year versus January of today? You can do that in STR Insights too. It's just not calculated in a pretty graph like that of saturation. Coming soon though, to a software near you. All right. Any other questions about saturation in RevPAR? Because this is really, yeah. Tim.
About this, but it's an awesome question. I think about something we just covered earlier. The booking window or
Yeah.
lead time. If you have any guidelines or data around, like if your average lead time is 50 days and you're 100 days out, what percentage do you increase the price by? Any guidelines or?
No.
I follow Price Labs and I'm completely booked. I'm like, damn, I'm way too low. Maybe
Yeah.
I need to go above their recommendation. I don't know if there's any data around that.
Well, you could talk to them or some of the revenue management people, and they might have more data, but I don't have anything that's like, oh, you should increase it by 50%. It kind of depends on your market. And so like for me, if that's happening, I'll just raise my prices, start out by 20% or 30% and see what happens. And if it really slows down, I'll bring it back down. It's kind of like A/B testing. So, okay. Amenity count and ROI. Okay. A lot of people, when they get started with a listing, I see this all the time, is they put all the amenities in. It's great. It's a fabulous listing. And we think we can set it and forget it. And the reality is you can't. Okay. I did this in my Lake Market. I'm playing chess with those people though. They're basically watching me. Last year. So the first year I put my property into service, I put in like a game room, right? Some like foosball tables and all that. Nobody had that in my market. All right. First one to ever do it. And then after one season, all of a sudden I'm tracking it. I'm looking at my competitors and start seeing game rooms. I'm like, hey, no, it's not my property. I'm like, whoa, that wasn't there before. And they're watching me. They're seeing it. So I'm already like 2, 3, 4 steps ahead of them. Like I've got a plan. I'm going to put in this. I'm going to put in that and that. And they're going to have to try to keep up with me because I know what amenities my guests want and what they don't have currently in the market. But I'm tracking that metric. Okay. So one of the things is it's like, oh, should I add this particular amenity? Well, first off, do your competitors have it? And if they do, are they making more than everybody else? Can we assume that's why they're making more? And you really have to study the data. So in STR Insights, we give you this data. You can literally export it, and it looks like this. You can just pull up a market. So this is Broken Bow, and hit export, and it will show you, go back to here. It will show you all the amenities of all the properties and how much money they make, their occupancy rates, and whether they have a particular amenity or not. Okay? You need to be tracking this on a quarterly basis. You need to see who's added what so you can beat them. Play chess, not checkers. And how do we play chess? You stay 2, 3 steps ahead of everybody else. Meaning like you have to assume, like go ahead and put it in your heads right now. The biggest thing you can take away besides the fact I talked about saturation and how to measure that, The biggest thing I want you to take away from this is the fact that you have to improve your property over time. You have to accept that. If you don't, you will be left in the dust. And I think you guys, like most people here, kind of get that. But the reality is, like, until you actually apply that and you're looking at the important metrics, you're not doing it. You will be left behind. So don't be left behind. Use these metrics, and that's how you beat your competition. The end. Anyway, I'll take some questions before. Yeah.
Repeat that last part one more time.
Oh boy. You said repeat that last part. So basically, I was just saying, like, make sure that you are constantly evaluating your market and your competition and plan to update and make changes to your property.
Great. I just wanted my wife to hear that.
Oh, that's why. Wow. I'm sorry I was a part of that. Awkward. Anyway. And guys, by the way, I want to announce something to you guys, and this is absolutely free. We have created, STR Insights has created a way for you to actually find, we send you deals to your email for free. And we have a cool new analyzer calculator thing that where you plug in an address and it will tell you how much revenue a property makes. And you can even put in different amenities. And it's absolutely free. You can sign up, use the QR codes. I even have one fancy here. And it's a new tool we created just for you guys at this conference. So anyway, check it out. It's free. What's up?
How does that data compare to AirDNA, data revenue, all the other ones? Why is there such fluctuation from when you go into that?
What do you mean?
Say, for example, I plugged in a property in Florida. AirDNA had, it was in Port Charlotte. AirDNA had me at $68,000 gross. Data revenue had it at $31,000.
Yep.
And I'm like, how is there so much fluctuation? So a lot of times,
I'm going to spend a lot of time on this tomorrow. But let me ask you a question, though. Let's say you bought that property and you thought that it was going to make $68,000. Would it actually make $68,000?
you don't know because owners.
No, like, so let's assume we feel confident in that number, but would it actually make $68,000?
Well, gross.
Gross, sure, gross.
No, it's thinking an average.
It will it'll either be above it or it will be below it, right? So like if I think my property is going to make 100K, what's the probability that I will make exactly $100,000? I'm not. So why are we running properties on a specific number when in reality, the market dictates a range? Okay? So I'll talk about this more in detail tomorrow, but the range of revenue might be 38 to 68,000. I know that's a wide range, and I'll dive in more. I'll give you some good examples of this. But the reality is when we're looking at properties, they're not going to make $68,000. They're either going to make above it or they're going to make below it. So why are we running our numbers and underwriting deals on a set number? You need to run it on a range. 60 to 70 or 60 to 80. I usually do about a 20% delta between the low end and the high end. Okay, I'll teach you guys how to do this later on tomorrow. This is my bread and butter. But stop relying on that one number. And that's where a lot of the confusion comes from. So, yeah. No, absolutely.
How do you feel that your data with the STR Insights compares to the competitor?
Yeah, on the spot. I like it. So number one, I'm going to deflect a little bit. Number one, I don't know how they get their data. And I don't really care. So the way that we do it is we're tracking properties on a daily basis and gathering their bookings and estimating their revenue based off this. But once again, when I'm evaluating, it's more of what I do differently to evaluate. I'm evaluating based on a good, better, best model, meaning I've got a worst case scenario and a best case scenario, and I'm looking at multiple data points in a market. If I see, and you're probably talking, you see maybe some anomalies in some data sets. Have you guys all seen that? You've used data before and you're like, this property doesn't make $200,000, this one bedroom condo in the middle of nowhere. There's no way this makes $200,000. Okay, and you lose confidence in it. But the reality is, even if it did, would you use that as your only comp to run your numbers on? No, you want to see multiple data points. And when we look at the data, regardless of the provider, we will see correlations and trends where you'll see these ranges, these tight subsets of data. You'll see properties that are doing 60 to 70,000. Then you'll see some like underperformers doing 30 to 40,000. So there's tier levels of revenue performance. And what we have to do is identify where the property we're looking at and what tier it falls under. I'm already giving away a lot of my secrets for tomorrow, but it's okay. We'll get into that. I love it. I love it. Anyway, but I'm not going to tell you, oh, ours is better, because I don't know what they do. So, sorry, deflect. But that's how I do it. Guys, when I run analysis for amenities, for properties, for whatever I do, I have to see multiple data points. I want to be comforted by the data. I want it to tell me, like, yes, Kenny, this is what these properties are doing. I'm not relying on one single data point. And even with calculators, we have a new one we just pushed out. I think it's great, but the reality is you should never rely on that one number it spits out. You need to do your own due diligence, and I'm here to help you with that method. So, but anyway, do check it out, though. It's cool. And it's free. So, cool. Other questions? Yes, sir.
What do you do to come up with amenities that you can't really
Yeah.
look at the data in the market or, you know, to talk about playing chess and saying,
Yeah, this is a really good question. So he's asking, and if I say something wrong, just correct me. I'm assuming. So he's asking, how do you know what amenities you should add to your property that maybe your competitors in the current market don't offer? So number one, it starts with understanding your guest avatar. So what are amenities that the people trying to stay at your property, what do they want or what are they looking for? Okay, and that might not be offered currently. Number two, what I like to do is I'll look at other markets that are similar, and I'll look at the top properties there, and I will look for amenities that stand out there that aren't in my market. And 9 times out of 10, it will work in your market too. Okay? It doesn't have to be the exact same location. A lot of people get caught up in this all like, well, my market is geographically defined as this zip code and this is the area. But when you go into Airbnb, and so as a user of Airbnb to book an Airbnb, right? When you go in there and you type in a market name, does it show you a geographical like zip code region? No, it shows you like this whole area. So your competition in reality is like regions, not zip codes, and not even some of the markets, right? If you said, I'm in Asheville, North Carolina, there's actually 10 markets, quote unquote markets, even STR Insights that are in Asheville, that area of Asheville. It's not just Asheville that you're competing against. So studying those additional markets and looking for those amenities that you might be thinking you should add. And that'll tell you like you should add or not. Does that make sense? Okay, hopefully that was helpful. What other questions?
You said something about the technique you use in Hospitable.
I just, exporting. So the technique I use in Hospitable to get the length of stay. Yeah, so I export my booking data, and then in my spreadsheet, I'll just average the dates. It'll give you the dates check in, check out, and I'll average that together to get my length of stay. Yeah. Was this helpful for you guys? Is this like too much or too little, like waste of time? Good, okay, all right, good. All right, no booze so far, so that's good. All right. Okay, guys, that's it before I don't know what time it is. Oh, I got 5 minutes for the next one. So, all right, we'll take a break.